conduct this evening, this talk, this special moment for all of us. We thank you, and so be it. Here we are again in another Saturday with one another, as Kirsten will bring another chapter of this amazing book, Times of Health and Conscientiousness, and she will talk about chapter 15 entitled Life Renewed with some work that she's put together for us to really dive into this matter, right? Kirsten, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Oh, lovely. I just say that just make sure we're all awake, we're all present, and it is a little bit warmer in here than usual, so it biologically might make us all a little bit more sluggish. So I know that Leo started out saying, "Let's everyone be calm, get in your Zen state." Well, I kind of want you to get a little bit out of that Zen state, and I want you to be present, and I want you to open up and unclog your ears and just really bring your whole self. Because today we're going to do something a little bit different. And for those of you who are watching on the web, don't worry, you're still going to be included. We'll try our best to include you. But today we wanted to do something a little bit different. If you haven't already noticed, each one of you were given a clipboard. On said clipboard, you're going to find the first page was an activity. It's your own personal activity to do. Then the second page, it's front and back. And then the third piece of paper that is there, that is a copy of today's chapter, front and back. And no, we don't always share the chapter in print form, but we really wanted to share it and for you to take it home, to read it again, think about it, digest it a little bit more. But I didn't want to stand up here for 45 minutes to an hour talking. And the spirits are so wise because we didn't know that the AC was broken. But thank God, in a way, that we're doing a different dynamic because no one can fall asleep. So good on you, good spirits. Good on me for listening, right? So we're going to talk about this chapter. We're going to do some work together. We're going to walk you through some things. I did share a video in our WhatsApp SSB group. If you are in that group, you saw that I shared a video. If you didn't get to watch it, that's okay. Try to watch it at a different time. It's just a subtopic I'm going to be touching on with these activities. Just thought it might help a little bit to have some background. So before we officially begin, there is a reason why in this book, Joanna, like as a sort of preface to each chapter, she shares these affirmations. So what I would like to do, and this might be contrary to what I just said, is actually to close your eyes if you feel comfortable. If not, that's okay. But just to help us to focus a little bit more is to listen as I state the positive affirmation and repeat it in your mind. Okay, are you all with me? Yes? Okay. Divine energy gives rise to life everywhere and reigns supreme over me. I'm going to repeat that. Divine energy give rise to life everywhere and reigns supreme over me. Undefinable, living and thinking, feeling and loving reach their climax in the human being. Undefinable, living and thinking, feeling and loving reach their climax in the human being. This powerful energy enables me to receive new resources for growth and self-actualization. This powerful energy enables me to receive new resources for growth and self-actualization. I choose happiness. I choose happiness. I will not give in to apathy, to the perturbing injunctions to which I have gotten used to. I choose happiness. I will not give in to apathy, to the perturbing injunctions to which I have gotten used to. I am life unfolding. I am life unfolding. I get back on my feet and acquire new patterns of thought and action to make myself whole. I get back on my feet and acquire new patterns of thought and action to make myself whole. Now you can open your eyes, take a moment to sort of stretch out your muscles a little bit if you want. Because here in the next few minutes, give or take 10 or 15 minutes, we're going to go through Joanna's message. You can follow along in the printout that I gave you, or you can listen. But what I want us to do is to use her lesson, to use her words for us to reflect. So as you hear me read them, I want you to also think about what they mean to you. So as you're hearing it, how does it land on you? How does it make you feel? What does it make you think of? So if I say to you, you're a child of God, and then I ask you, how does that land on you? You might say something like, well, I feel really loved, or I feel really happy, or I feel really connected to my higher power. And then I might ask you something like, where do you feel that in your body? If you would close your eyes, you might say, oh, I feel it over my heart. And just a tingling all throughout my body. I just feel vibrant, like that life force from God. Something like that. So let us be really present when we're reading this, discussing it, and talking about it. So I'm going to read the following text. Life is the most extraordinary gift there is. It manifests in many, many forms, obeying rhythmic cycles with established objectives. It cannot be avoided or even delayed on its rhythmically fatalistic course to perfection. Life renews itself endlessly, and this phenomenon is part of its process. Whatever is not renewed, dies, is transformed, upsets the dynamics of life. Life is a precious gift. Use your days wisely. So in this first text, life is the most extraordinary gift there is. There's so many different forms in which it manifests. There are rhythmic cycles, and we can study this in science. We know this about nature. This is what Joanna's talking is very poetic, but is actual science behind it as well. And life is cyclic. You're born, our physical body dies, ashes to ashes, dust to dust, as they say, and then we reincarnate at some point. Life, all of these subparts of life, we already know this. It has cycles it goes through. Nature in and of itself, the most beautiful cycles, unless man goes and interrupts it and breaks it and messes it up, which we've been doing a little bit lately, kind of a lot. That's what disrupts the dynamics of it. But if we are balanced, and don't disturb this flow of how our life should go. But first, before we process any of that, before we think about answering the questions on that sheet of paper that I gave you, is to first, I want you to sit with this first sentence. Life is the most extraordinary gift there is. And if I were to call on anyone right now, I want you to think about answering the question, when you hear this sentence, how does it make you feel? Life is the most extraordinary gift there is. And if you're willing to share, I don't necessarily want to call on you to put anyone on the spot. But is there anyone who would like to share how they feel when they read that sentence? Fiona?
Well, I feel thrilled because every day is a renewal. Every day I have a new chance. And it is extraordinary because I can be very sad today, but in the afternoon I can be happy or I can have good news. And just the fact I can move and go around and do something to solve the difficulties, it's just magic.
Thank you, Johnny. Jeanette?
I feel like I'm alive. I feel part of, I'm feeling, I feel in,
Feel connected.
connected. Yes.
And Paula, the last one.
Blessed and chosen.
Blessed and chosen.
And it reminds me of the title of Matthew Fox's book, Original Blessing,
Original blessing.
that he wrote to replace original sin.
Oh, I like that. Original blessing. You said Matthew Fox was the author? Interesting. Paula always gives good books, by the way, recommendations. I digress. We go back. Let's continue reading because we have yet to start the work. Joanna goes on to say in this chapter, human life in particular is a supreme gift that must be preserved and used effectively, expanding it to the utmost in order to reap its benefits. A divine emanation, life is the presence of the supreme consciousness manifesting everywhere. Inhaling and being inundated with that vital energy is an act of intelligence, used for preserving and expanding achievements. In this ceaseless flow of energy, individuals' innate possibilities blossom, and they perceive the glory and joy of living. Our human life, our lives are this supreme gift. So important are each one of us, and so complex. And we're going to talk about that here in a little bit. For life to pulsate, Joanna goes on, for life to pulsate abundantly within you, make a careful assessment of how you feel about yourself. Make a careful assessment of how you feel about yourself, how you are doing, and what you have achieved. Have the courage to make a conscious, responsible, enriching self-analysis so that when negative results turn up, you can cope by changing your beliefs, thoughts, habits, and behaviors, anything that obstructs your development, your appreciation of life and its bounty. And this is what we're going to do today. We're going to put this into practice. We're going to try this in this short span of time. We're going to try to do this small analysis of ourselves, how we feel, the different parts of ourselves we'll go into. And hopefully this will be a glimpse into this deeper parts of yourself, because we are complex beings. Yes, we are children of God. We are immortal, and we carry from lifetime to lifetime a lot of baggage that becomes so ingrained in who we are, we barely notice it. Unless we take the time to do what my friend in this picture is doing. He is doing some self-discovery, going inside. That's what we're here to talk about today. And that's what Joanna talks about. From life to lifetime, these old ingrained habits become so interwoven into who we are. She says old ingrained habits, negative thoughts, a weakened will, pernicious atavisms, and unreleased resentments will conspire against your plans for renewal. You will see the need for change, but all the fixations of your existence will rise up against you, imposing restrictions, postponements, disincentives. So we become our own worst enemy. All of our ingrained habits, all of our pernicious atavisms, things that we carry with us, old bad behaviors, and unreleased resentments. This is a big one. You know, in the Gospel according to Spiritism, they say that half of the suffering we endure is self-inflicted. And there's half that's we have to go through, it's part of a reincarnatory plan, but the other half we cause. Why? Unreleased resentments, negative thoughts, old ingrained habits, pernicious atavisms. All of these things can be seen as our own worst enemy. And I'm so glad that Joanna doesn't say that. She doesn't say like, oh, those are the horrible parts of yourself. She doesn't say that. She just identifies what they are, their old ingrained habits, their negative thoughts, a weakened will, and we might even feel, as Joanna says, we might even have the desire to change, but all the fixations of our existence, all of these things, these parts of us within us will rise up against ourselves. Let me give you an example to put this into actual. Who has read the book Memoirs of a Suicide? Okay, that's okay if you haven't. It's a very, very intense book. I'm sure both in Portuguese and in English. So there's a case, obviously there's a case of suicide. I believe I shared it before. In the case of a 30-year-old gentleman who works at a bank. No, Leo, this isn't any reference to you at all. Okay. Not that you're 30, but it's about a 30-year-old gentleman, give or take a year or two, in the prime of his life, has a great job at the bank, finds this beautiful woman, falls in love, absolute love of his life, asks her to marry him. They have all these plans. Like every duck is lining up in a row in his life, like everything, like getting the house of his dreams, you know, finding the dog of his dream, like everything. Like it's just like the heavens were pouring down over his life. But then he started noticing he was getting a little bit sick. So, you know, as most men do, not any of the men in here, but some men, they ignore it for a while. But then eventually he went to the doctors, and the doctor gave him the bad news that he had tongue and throat cancer. never smoked, was a very healthy person, didn't understand, didn't run in his family, had no idea why was this happening to me. So, and imagine all of this happening when he was in the prime of his life, like the most handsome he's ever going to be, age 30, right? Had all his hair, perfect job, fiance, I mean, the whole 9 yards, right? And boom, this happens. So what does he do? Okay, well, he's not rich. So he starts little by little having to steal money from the bank to pay for his cancer treatment. Eventually it gets so bad where he steals so much money. And the doctors tell him, we're so sorry that despite all the treatments that we're giving you, it's spreading. There's not a whole lot we can do. And he's devastated. So he decides to take his life. He kills himself. He goes to the other side. He suffers for a really long time. He gets rescued. He goes to this spiritual hospital / school. And there they do like an analysis of his life. And I'm shortening the story because it's really elongated, but let's just put it in this perspective. So they do an analysis of his life, of his most recent incarnation, because he's still very much like revolted against the idea, like, why did God do this to me? Like, I had a perfect life. Why did God give me cancer? Why did he let that happen to me? So the high mentor says, okay, sit here. We're going to put a device on your head, and it's going to project. So you and the other people here that are treating you are going to show why that happened to you. So he's like, okay, great. Yeah, because I did nothing. I'm great. I'm the best human being ever in the whole world. Puts on the device. And of course, as you guys can already assume, this scene begins to go. So the scene takes place, it's projected from his mind, from the inner recesses of his memory bank, right? The hard drive of his life, many lifetimes, projects on the screen about the 1800s or so. He's a He's a rich and wealthy landowner, farm owner, who has many slaves, many slaves, like a lot. And he's cruel, unimaginably cruel. And he likes to specifically abuse the young female slaves. And you can imagine what he was doing with them, treating them like no better or less than even an animal. Because even an animal you show some care for and some respect, I hope. But even he treated them worse than the animals. And then if they would complain, he would just kill them. And one particular day, he had taken a liking to this one particular female slave. She was a teenager, maybe like 15, 14, and had abused her again and again and again and again. And her father, who's also a slave, couldn't take it anymore, watching this happen to his daughter and countless others of the hundreds of slaves that were on this farm. And this father, who was a slave, this African man, he stood up to him, to this slave owner, and was screaming at him and yelling at him and saying profanities and saying, you're going to go to hell, you're going to, and just wishing the worst of all things on him for doing that to his daughter and all the other daughters on the plantation. So the slave owner simply looked at him, called his guards to come over, and said, okay, take this slave. And there was a place on every plantation where they would exact their punishment. So take him over there to the little area and bring all the other slaves. So they brought all the other slaves, and one of the farm hands, the slave owner, the master, said to him, cut out his tongue. In front of everybody, cut out his tongue. A couple of other helpers, guards, held down the slave, and the farmer's other worker cut out his tongue. He cut it out because he said, you will never speak to me like this again. Cut out his tongue, and this slave bled to death and died. So the film goes off and stops at that point. And the man who's now in the spirit realm, remember, who had killed himself, who had the tongue and throat cancer, was like, what is this? And the mentor's like, you are the slave owner. That was you. And he begins to say, that's not me. I would never own slaves. I would never do that. I can't even fathom ever. And he said, yes, it's been many incarnations since that time has passed. But that was you, and you did that. And he said, somewhere in the deep inner recesses of your mind, all of that and what you have done has weighed on you and played a part in your reincarnatory process. And that is in part a reason why this has developed. So the mentor stops there. And you might think to yourself, well, where is this slave who he cut his tongue out? He must be obsessing him, right? That would be the first notion, maybe. So this dramatic scene then carries on. And the spirit of the slave who he cut his tongue out walks out to where they are with the former suicide, the mentor, and the others that were there to learn from this experience. And the slave walks out, and the man obviously recognizes him as the slave from the scene. And he's like, no, I didn't do that to you. It wasn't me. And the spirit, he just stands there looking at the man. And then the spirit begins to become transfigured and begins to transform, and now has taken on the appearance of this man's last incarnation, his father. So everyone's looking. And so in the book, they explain that in that most recent life, and many lifetimes prior probably, but definitely that last incarnation, that slave had forgiven him and had wanted to guide him back to the right path, because he had been so revolted and so against so much goodness. Because remember, he was cruel, but he had reached a point in his reincarnatory path where he had become good. And now was the time for him to experience what he needed to experience. Why are we sharing all of this? Some old ingrained habits we can say that this former slave owner continued to have, this rebelliousness against God that he maintained since the time of when he was a slave owner. We bring a lot of these atavistic, pernicious, not so good for us behavior from one life to the next. So we share this story just to illustrate how from a century ago, centuries ago, we can carry with us different parts of these personalities. I'm going to go on. Joanna says, among the many negative factors that will try to keep you in a state of suffering or paralysis, there is the fear of what others will say. This is a big one. The fear of what others will say, of how others will see you, and what will befall you or what will happen to you. This is a big problem for anyone that lives in society. It's the fear of what others will say about you, how they will see you, and then what will happen to you because of that, or just what will happen to you in general. And there's an old saying that says, we don't see ourselves as we are, we see ourselves through the lens of others. So I don't see myself as this divine being necessarily, but I might default to thinking about how Jeanette might be thinking about me. So I'm not connecting with my higher power or with my sense of self. I'm so preoccupied, like, oh, I have to make sure that I'm doing this right. What if someone was going to judge me? Which, in a way, in terms of our evolutionary process, is important. It played its part. But now that as we are evolving, these are parts of ourselves we need to take a second look at. Joanna continues, other disturbing dynamics will emerge from your unconscious to keep you stuck at your present level. You will believe you are too tired, old, young, weak-willed, lacking in moral strength, or unable to cope with new situations. How many of you have ever said or heard of old dogs can't learn new tricks? You will give in to temptation to remain where you are with problems, anxieties, dissatisfaction, and failures. How many times do we become complacent? Or even we may not like something, we stay or we continue on that path because it's what we know. So sorry, guys, it's becoming unbelievably hot in here. I'm melting like a chocolate bar. But I want us to think about this man. You may have heard his name, Dr. Viktor Frankl. He was an Austrian neurologist, psychiatrist, philosopher, writer, and Holocaust survivor. And he's written a lot of books, especially post-Holocaust. And one of my favorite quotes from him is this: everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. And reading sidebar, if you have the chance to look up and read any of I forget the name of the book. It's called someone remind me. The Search for Meaning. It's an amazing book. And to read about his experience in the Holocaust and how he utilized that and the growth that occurred within him and the knowledge and the wisdom that came out for all of us from that experience is immense. So I highly recommend you go and look him up. But let's think about that for a second. The last of the human freedoms, our attitude, nobody can take that away from us. That is something that we can endure many physical ailments and many things, but our choice of how to view something is our own, independent of what's happening, to choose our own way. Joanna goes on to say the following: even so, begin by revising your old beliefs, those that were imposed on you by persons who, though well-meaning, were ill-equipped to educate you with their derogatory opinions, their servile concepts, their dire predictions. You are capable of overcoming pessimism and the lack of self-esteem that was foisted on you and which you eagerly accepted. What is she talking about here? She is talking about possibly the erroneous ways or behaviors or guilt or bad habits that our parents may have taught us, whether consciously or unconsciously. Because our parents learn from their parents, who learn from their parents, who learn from their parents, and it just trickles down. And we have a way of just accepting it to survive. And without wanting, because of time, without wanting to go into intense meaning behind all of this, we know that in the world of psychology, as well as in science and in evolution, we as human beings have a beautiful way to adapt. So we as children, we adapt. We learn, oh, this is good to do. Or if mommy looks at me if I start to dance and she doesn't like that, she gives me an evil look, I learned that dancing is bad, so I don't dance. It's a very a small way to explain what happens in our psyche and in our body. But we're going to talk about this. But she tells us that now is the moment. This is your moment, not later or maybe never. So when she says begin by revising your old beliefs, how do we know if beliefs are old? How do we find that out? Anyone? It's a question. How do you figure out what are your old beliefs? Because how can you revise something if you don't know what beliefs you have or if they're old? You might say something like, well, I've always kind of thought this way for as long as I could remember. I've always kind of viewed XYZ this way. Or that's just what I've learned from my parents and their parents and my culture. But now Joanna's saying, let us revisit those things that we have learned since childhood and see what we need to change and revise. And now we get to the point in my talk where we're done with Joanna's message. And if conditions in this room allow us, if I don't melt away, hopefully we can continue on to our activity that you have before you. So if you all could go back to your very first page. I'm going to share the following with you. The first handout that you should see, if you haven't moved it around the papers, is a worksheet and a self-activity called All Parts Are Welcome. This is based off of a therapeutic modality called internal family systems, founded by Dr. Richard Schwartz in the 90s, give or take. It's been gaining so much popularity. It's this basic idea that we are composed of subpersonalities. What does this mean? I'll explain briefly. Have you ever found yourself saying, ooh, I really want to eat this piece of chocolate, or I really want to eat this cheesecake, but there's a part of me that's like, no, don't do that. And there's like another part of me that's like, ooh, if you eat that's going to taste so good. And then there's another part of me is like, what are you doing? You obese human being, you shouldn't be existing. So there are all these different parts. He's like, you feel two ways about something, or you feel different ways. Like, well, I want to do this, but I feel this way. I want to go make up with my partner or my sister or my neighbor, but a part of me still is angry. This is the building blocks of internal family systems, that we are a multiverse in and of ourselves. And it's not that we have multiple personalities in a pathological sense, but that we have sub-personalities, sub-parts of us. We're going to refer to it as parts, like this part of me and this other part of me, the multiple parts of us. So when answering this particular activity, we thought it most important to mention and to make sure that we are all aware that unlike a lot of other therapeutic modalities, I shouldn't say that because I'm not a psychologist, Paula, you are, but IFS is unique in that it doesn't teach us to hate the parts of us that make us do things that are bad. Instead, it helps us to embrace all different parts of ourselves. That's why this is entitled, All Parts Are Welcome. Yes, even the part of us that makes us have road rage are welcome. We want you to embrace that part of yourself. Why is this important? If we constantly have this negative view of our own selves, we'll never be able to face it. We'll never be able to offer it healing, because that is a part of us. Now, people might say, oh, I'm an alcoholic. I'm a this, I'm a that. No, you're not those things. A part of you makes you want to drink. A part of you makes you do that or this. It's a part of you. As a whole, from God's perspective, you are an immortal child of God, worthy of happiness and joy and all good things in life. But there are parts of us we need to deal with. And because of that, ooh, do you want to do that? I can't zoom in? Yes, I can. I want us to do the following exercise. I'm just going to read it for us. You all should have a pen. The following exercise can help you embrace and talk to all parts of yourself using your attention and a few simple questions. So I want each of you to, if you can't, I hope the font size on your paper is good enough. If not, I'll read to you. Step 1. This is the activity here. Focus your attention inside yourself. Actually, I have extras. I did have them in the back. They were, huh? No. I had extras, papers. No? Not there? Hold on. No. I had it here. I want you guys to read through this. Okay, step 1. Focus your attention inside yourself and say the following in your head or out loud if you're at home, if you do this again. I want to help anyone that needs help first, But first, I need to know all of you. And this is in reference to all the parts of yourself. All the different parts of yourself, the part of you that can get angry, the part of you that can get sad, the part of you that can get happy, the part of you that hates your sister-in-law or really despises your neighbor or really loves your dentist. All the parts of you that fight with your sister, or the parts of you that get angry, everything. So first, it would be beneficial to maybe close your eyes when you do this and say to yourself, I want to help anyone or any part of me that needs help. But first, I need to know all of you. Then saying the following to yourself, if you overwhelm me, I will not be able to help you. So you might have a part of you that comes forward in this moment that might have been angry earlier today, might have been dealing with an issue at work or at home or with your neighbor or what have you. But remember, you're saying this to yourself. And 3, please be here with me rather than taking me over. When you are ready, let me know who you are and I will write it down. So as we're reading this, I want you to think about what is the first thing that came to your mind as you were reading this? There's no wrong or right answer. There's no wrong answer, I should say. There's no wrong answer. What comes to your mind when you close your eyes and you're trying to look inward at the different parts of yourself? What is the first one in your mind that comes up? Do you want to share, Chris? No? That's okay. Does anybody want to share? You don't have to. It's a very personal experience. Paula?
Little child.
Paula says a little child part of her. There's no wrong answer. And I want this to be a safe space. I know that we are recording on the web, but I also don't have to give the mic to you. So that's okay. But if you can, and no one will be looking at your paper, answer that question. You can even write down, well, I closed my eyes and the thing that came to my mind is I saw a cat. Write that down. Or I saw a book. I saw me as a small child. I saw me when I was 12. Like, you might not even understand it at all. Something random. Let's write it down. You can include any thoughts that you had as well. Doesn't necessarily just have to be like a figure. Any thoughts you had, any emotions or sensations that you felt. If you just feel tired, you can write that. If you feel hot, like I do, you can write that. There's no wrong answer. And then we're going to stop there. And we're going to do the next exercise, or at least try to run through part of it. Give you another 30 seconds to a minute just to finish your writing. Just, you can flip the page over once you're done, just, if you want to keep that private or just to get ready for the next activity. Zoom in. Okay. Okay, we're going to go on to the second activity. Now, in internal family systems, or IFS, there's something called the 6 F's. And I'm going to read to you what it says here. A key concept, a key aspect of IFS therapy is to find, focus, and flesh out the protective parts, and excuse me, guys, and help us to unblend and notice ourself. Once this is done, we can recognize our feelings toward and befriend the target part, explore its fears, and invite it to do something new. So let us go directly into the steps. Now, I will explain this. And this might seem a little outlandish for some of you. You might think, this sounds crazy. Kirsten, what are you talking about? This is insane. Well, humor me. Let's do this exercise that we've maybe never done before, and let's just see where it takes it. We'll see where it takes you and me. So I want you to think about something in your mind right now that bothers you. It could be anything in the world, doesn't matter. Something that currently is bothering you. I want you to think about it. Do you have that thing in your mind? Let me know when you all have that thing in your mind that's currently bothering you. Just give me a good nod. Some people are still thinking. Okay. So keep thinking about that thing that bothers you. Now I want you to close your eyes. Keep thinking about that thing that really bugs you. And I want you to stop for a minute. And I want you to be conscious of where you might be feeling that in your body. Like as you're thinking of that negative thing, are you feeling some sort of tightness in your lower back? Are you feeling a heaviness over your shoulders? Are you feeling something maybe in your legs or anywhere around or in the body. And I want you to write down how it feels in your body. Does it feel tight? Does it you feel like pain over your head, or just like it could be anything. You could say, well, Kirsten, I think I feel like a weird feeling on my head. I feel it just on my shoulders. It's like a weight. Or for some reason, Kirsten, I don't know why, but I just see like this black ball on my foot. And that's whenever I think of this, it's where I feel it. It's like in my foot. I don't know why. Write it down. And when you think about that part in your body, and the next little, because we've already done step 2 and focused in on it, step 3, flesh it out. What do you see when you look at this? When you think about this angry, this thing that makes you upset, we've identified where we feel it in our body. And when you look at it, what do you see, or what do you experience when you're looking at it or when you're with it? So this, I'll give you an example. I'm angry with my father. And when I think about that, I feel this heaviness on my chest. And I'm focusing on it. I'm focusing on it. And what I see and experience is this heaviness, this feeling of being unloved. Remember, there's no wrong answer. The point is to get to know this part of you. And if you don't want to write certain things down, that's okay. You just keep it in your mind. That's all right. But now I want you to move to step 4, which is the back of the paper. Now remember when I asked you, how did you feel? Where did you feel this in your body when you thought about this thing that angered you? I asked you, where did you feel it in your body? How did you experience it? And now I want to ask you, how do you feel towards this part of you that presents as heavy chest pain? Daniel, oh, sorry. Oh, nope. For some reason it didn't come. Okay. Yeah. Step 4, how do you feel towards it? How do you feel towards this part of you that gets activated when you think about this situation that makes you angry? You could say it's this part of me that feels heavy in my body. I feel it heavy on my chest. And when I experience it as an angry part, a sad part, an unloved part, a part of me that feels unloved. And I want you to look at this part as if it's outside of you. And I want you to ask yourself, how do you feel towards that part? You know, someone mentioned that what came to their mind was this picture of a little girl. How do you feel towards that little girl? Are you annoyed with her? Do you wish she would just go away? Just write down what can you see and experience. Now I want you to go to step 5. We're going to find out more about this part. We're going to befriend it. Learn more about the target part and develop a friendly relationship. You can also do this in your mind. This part of you and you can ask this part of you, maybe it's that little girl that came to your mind, the little version of you. And you can ask that little girl, what is it that she wants you to know? What does this part of you want you to know? What is its purpose for you? And I know these questions, if you're coming up with, I don't know, then you're on the right track. And if you know, you're on the right track too. This is just a technique to get to know the deeper parts of ourselves. And it's very common for when we are beginning this process to say, I don't know what I see, or I don't know. That's okay. Let's keep asking ourselves the question. And step 6, the last step. Let's ask this part, what does this part fear? What is it afraid of? What does it want for you? And what would happen if this part of you stops doing what it always does, which is get angry? Or whatever part you've identified. Because each part of us serves a purpose. It may be manifesting in a way that's maybe to you undesirable, but even that angry part has a purpose. So this is an important part of this step, is asking this question. This might seem like a lot of hokey pokey. This might seem outlandish. This might seem off the wall. But within us, since we are a part of divinity, we are creatures, we are children of God, we have within us this wisdom, this internal wisdom. You might not think it, but we have the ability to heal ourselves. And one of the scariest things is facing who we are, who we really are. And we tend to push that down and have a lot of what we call protectors. We have protective mechanisms that don't allow us to go beneath the surface of who we are because that's too scary. Well, one particular phrase that the psychologist, Dr. Tori Olds, she has a YouTube channel. It's all things IFS. She's absolutely wonderful in breaking it down. It's she's the person speaking in the video that I shared in our center's WhatsApp group. Again, her name is Dr. Tori Olds. And she said the following phrase came to her one day. And I want us to hear it and say it to ourselves. Okay, when you close your eyes, I want you to say the following: I am deeper than my pain. I am deeper than my pain. Or, if this sits better with you, I am the thing that's deeper than my pain. I am the thing that's deeper than my pain. And as we come to a close and get ready to transition to our second part of this evening, you might be asking yourself, why did we do this? This was weird. Good. I'm glad. I'm glad you think it's weird. It means it's different. We're doing this because it's important for us to put into practice. Thank you. To put into practice all these things that Joanna is talking about. This whole chapter, which I have included. We are unable to enjoy this extraordinary gift that is our life if we are so troubled and bogged down by our own self. It's very difficult to recognize that our life is a gift when we have old ingrained habits, negative thoughts, unreleased sentiments that are stuck and are manifested in our physical body. How can I enjoy life when I'm full of this? I can't. That's why things like this are so vital for our own personal healing, because we are immortal souls living many lifetimes and carrying with us this baggage. And when it comes to spiritism and mitigating obsession, one of the things that you can learn and we've learned is that it's not that we can go back and do better. Because I can't go back and undo what I've done to my quote unquote victims who are now obsessing me or disturbing me to some degree. But oftentimes, if not always, they are looking at us saying, you are the same cruel, bad, evil person. And the best way we can find ourselves out of that situation is to go in ourselves, to face who we are, and to change. And that's what Joanna talked about today, the revision of our old habits. How can we do that unless we're actually doing it? Unless we're actually taking the time to do that. Now, these exercises, these types of things, I know we said we're ending, and I promise you we are, because everyone's hot in here. These types of things can happen when we go through hard times. We begin to realize there are parts of ourselves that we didn't know. We find strength that we didn't know we had. We found anger that we didn't know we had when someone provokes us. So let this be a takeaway to invest in yourself, in your own self-healing. You'll be all the better for it. Thank you, everyone. So I'm actually going to, because of the temperature in this room, I'm going to skip questions. There's one question. Okay. There's one question?
Don't skip yet.
Okay.
Don't skip yet.
Don't skip yet. Okay.
Well, first of all,
there's just a part of me in this moment that's just really hot.
be friend with that part.
I'll be friends with the part.
Well, thank you, Kirsten, for this reminder and bringing this passage from Joanna de Angelis. And to make it quick, I would like to just bring a passage. One of the comments that Abby actually shared with us as you were brought the first part, which is that she says that when I open my eyes in the morning, I am grateful. Actually, I'm talking about when we shared the first verse, talking about life in general.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then Yasko asks, she brings the part of the passage from the book, unreleased resentments conspire against our intention or plan for renewal. Most of us, that's the quote from the book, most of us are conscious of that or have been advised about it by a friend, counselor, etc. However, it seems that we almost enjoy being resentful, repeatedly revisiting in our mind that triggering event, enduring long suffering, sabotaging our renewal. Why is that?
That's an excellent question, Yasko, and thank you for asking that. And thank you, Abby, as well, for your comments and interacting with us. Yasko, I'm going to answer your question like this. Yasko, you may not be able to relate to this, but hopefully you'll get the gist. Have you ever found yourself eating chocolate or some sort of sweet more than you should? And you know that it's not good for you, and you know that's going to add, pounds, kilos, but you continue to want it and do it anyway? Why do we do that? We do it because of punishment? Okay. Oh, I should give you the mic. Leo, can you give her the mic? Oh, she's.
So if you ask why a person knows the chocolate is bad for her, but she wants to eat, and she goes on and eat and eat and eat and eat, and
Yes.
she's, oh my God, I'm going ahead with
Yes.
this. So I think it's a punishment.
Okay.
Because I cannot stop it anyway, so I'm gonna go on and on and on.
Okay.
Until
So might as well do it. I'm doing it
Yeah.
anyway. Okay.
Yeah.
So why might
Comfort. I
It's-
think
it's-
it's comfort.
it's a comfort, Vlad said. And Marty said that healthy food tastes like cardboard. I assure you, Samia's healthy food does not taste like cardboard. I have it on good authority. We do it because it feels good. We like it. There's some enjoyment to it. It's some enjoyment to it. So that is why we continue, Yasko, to harbor those feelings, because somewhere, even that might not make sense, there's some part of us that is comfortable and takes some sort of enjoyment out of it. Now, great question, Chris. Love it. Yes, like are we masochists? I think recently I gave a talk or did a Q&A, and Susanna Simones from Florida asked me a question. She said, some people say that spiritists are masochists. Is that true? No, but I can understand why. Because we talk a whole lot about suffering. But we're not masochists. What we are complex human beings. So to specifically answer your question, Chris, how could it be that there's a part of me that would enjoy that? Okay, give you an example. I'm so used to doing what I'm doing every day. I feel comfortable with that. It's a habit I formed over millennia. That there's not enough pain to stop me from doing that thing. So I keep doing it, like the story of the dog and the nail. There's a man that's walking by this gas station and sees a dog laying down crying. And the man says to its owner, why is your dog crying and just laying there? He said, oh, because he's laying on a nail. And the guy says, why doesn't the dog just get up? He said, well, because the dog doesn't want to, and it's not in enough pain. But at some point, when it's in enough pain, it'll get up, it'll move. So we are sometimes like that dog. We do things, we engage in things, and we use chocolate because that's the easiest thing. Engage in food, activities, behaviors. And this is how much we don't know ourselves, that we continue to have these behaviors, these parts of ourselves that have been created out of millennia in our own evolution to help us, to protect us. So for instance, at some point in our lives, you might say, well, Kirsten, I feel like I'm a really reactive person. Like whenever someone, annoys me or anything out of this, I flip. Well, that part of you, it's a protective part of you, much like all other parts of us that tend to come out when we're reactive, has was created over time, whether from the time we were a child or previous incarnations, as a protective mechanism for us. So you can read further about this if you want to read Dr. Richard Swartz's book, All Parts. There are no bad parts. It's an excellent book. Get on Amazon. Or you can look it up on YouTube. So I think I extended that.
No, thank you. I know we're a little bit warm in here, but I just want to give the time for everybody to make a final comment before we finalize. Any questions, any comment that you may have? Okay. Thank you, Kirsten, again. And yes, less light, less heat. Thank you. You can take the water. One of the things that I would like to add to this as well, knowing a little bit about IFS, that I would like to remind everybody is that tomorrow when we get up, and hopefully when we get up right after, we do what? We take care of ourselves, right? Comb our hair, brush our teeth, whatever we do. Try to stop and think about this. Seriously, try to stop and think about what we just did to take care of ourselves. The parts that we connected, it's very hard. It's extremely hard. It's hard for me, so I hope it is as hard for you, so we understand that we're not masochists. It's just we're just so repetitively doing the same thing over and over and over and over that it's really hard for us to stop and think, especially when we are conditioned throughout a lifetime or many lifetimes not to do so. So this is a very interesting topic that Kirsten brings here, along with Joanna de Angelis, that I think it really helps us grow in our lives. On that note, let us pray. Let us pray that we can remember, that we can exercise it, and not only make one event, but several events of our lives, right? Where we stop and we think. When the triggering moment comes to us, we take a step back and say, wait a minute. What am I supposed to do with this, right? Like we receive a gift from ourselves. Let us then find a comfortable position. This is the moment that we invite everyone at home as well to, yes, please. Thank you. To connect with the message and connect with what we learned here so that we can prepare ourselves for the tomorrow. Dear Mother, Father God, we will take this moment to pray for one another. In lieu of our physical passes, we would like to receive your guidance, your protection, as we sit down and pray together and elevate our thoughts and our feelings towards you. We take this moment to be thankful, be grateful for this conversation, the connection that we had with one another, the warmth of our hearts, the warmth of our thoughts transmitted towards one another, as well as the example that was brought to us to illustrate how much we are connected with our past. Also, it's important to remind ourselves of how much we are responsible to receive what has been presented to us, how much we are responsible on how we receive. Certainly generating adverse feelings depending on what is presented. Sometimes we feel connected even though they're negative. For all the more, we are responsible on how we react. So we invite everyone to be active, to find joy in our lives, liberating ourselves from the repetitive ideals that perhaps is only holding us back. We are immersed in life. We are connected with our Creator because we are. And taking from the teachings from the gospel according to Spiritism, where we are reminded to praise our dear Creator, to ask and to give thanks. This message comes as a reminder for us to praise as we are connected with our dear Creator because we exist, because we are life. We multiply life. As much as in the past we have not done so to the best of our abilities, at least now we have reminders, we have invitations, and we are conscious of it. Furthermore, we give thanks because now we are in a position grateful for this moment, thankful for one another. But we continue asking that tomorrow we can continue in this exercise, liberating ourselves from the past and be thankful for life. Be thankful for Joanna de Angelis in these words. Our dear friend Kirsten, who came and brought this moment, this idea of renewal, along with the treatment provided by the IFS, Dr. Schwartz, and all the practitioners who are behind of renewals, all of the friends, helpers that are behind renewals, our family members who kindly give us a word when we are in need. Even those whom we still have to fix certain things, sometimes they remind us of the renewal of life as they point some of the parts that we present towards them to renew it, to change. Let us be thankful, grateful, and always renew our lives as we ask the world and the universe to change around us. Let us be an example, as Joanna de Angelis reminded us at the beginning of this talk today, from the passage of the book Happy Life. We are an example for the universe. We are thankful, dear Lord. And at this moment, if you have your water, you may drink it with intention so that we all connected in one heart and one mind. These teachings of this evening. And so be it.